I call to order this March 19th meeting of the North Allegheny School District. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will start with our calendar review. This evening, we had an executive session to discuss a legal issue. We have our regular voting meeting tonight. Our next meeting will be April 9th, and we will have a tentative executive session planned. And at our work session that evening, we will have our BCIT curriculum review presentation and a proposed final budget presentation. Then next month, our regular voting meeting will be on April 23rd. Moving on to speakers on voting items. We did not have any speakers call ahead to register to speak on voting items. If you would like to speak on a voting item right now, this is your opportunity. Do we have anyone in the audience who would like to speak at this time? Mr. Harrison?
Good evening, John Harrison, 1473 Hedwig, Allison Park. In the very back of it, there was about reading of different board policies, and there was one that had to do with music. And my question was, do we have something that is replacing that, or is it just totally going away? If you could advise us on that before you vote on that, that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Mr. Weniger, are you online and were you able to hear the comment?
I am.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak on a voting item? Okay. Seeing none, we are going to move on to our approval of the minutes. Ms. Hardy.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. This evening, the board has two items for board action, and they are to approve the minutes of the February 12th and the February 26th meetings. And I so move.
Second.
Any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, we're ready for the vote.
The vote is open.
Are you? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
The vote is closed and passes unanimously.
Thank you. Now we will move on to our student activities report. Mr. Corona and Ms. Faber.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. Speech and debate has qualified 50 students to states this year, the most in NA history. Additionally, 15 students qualified to the NCFL National Championships in Chicago. The girls' varsity fencing team won the Pittsburgh Interscholastic Fencing Association Championship on Friday at Oakland Catholic High School and on Friday, February 28th. The team competed against 11 other schools in the region. NAI Project Water is gearing up for our all-day dodgeball event on April 16th. They have over 500 students registered and over 100 volunteers. They will need to schedule teams, train volunteers, prepare setup for the event, and execute the event on April 16th. NAI is looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. The senior class celebrated Senior Day on February 25th with students wearing their senior crewneck sweatshirts. In March, early bird ticket sales for the senior prom will begin, running from March 18th to March 21st. Tickets can be purchased online until 3 p.m. on March 21st or in person before school on March 18th and 20th and after school on March 19th and 21st. Student council officer elections are about to begin at Nash. Students can run for one of our 6 officer positions next year. I should note that the race for the Nash School Board representative is also underway. At our informational meeting yesterday, several students were interested in my position for next year with a continued mission to bridge the gap between students and administration. The North Allegheny rowing team is officially back on the water for our spring season. We are focusing on refining our techniques and preparing for our first spring race in April. At our indoor competition last month, Anthony Bertucci, who is also one of my close friends, made NA rowing history by climbing up to our number 6 spot on the team's top 25 all-time 2K record board. Tomorrow, Nash will host a mobile polar plunge to benefit the Special Olympics. Students, staff, and community members have collectively raised nearly $10,000. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Corona. All right, now we're going to move on to the rest of the agenda. Although there were a couple names added to items in the Human Resources Report and the Professional Development and Seminars, all of these items were the same as last week, and there was no significant issues when we had the opportunity to discuss them. So would like someone on the board like to move a consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on these items? Mrs. Blackburn.
I would just like to especially thank our one retiree, our principal at Peebles. You know, when you're on the school board, most of the letters you get are complaints. It's just the nature of the beast. And I will say I've been on the board now for 13 years, and I don't recall ever getting any complaints. Only heard a lot of love. I think a lot of people are going to be crying, and it's definitely a loss to our district. So I definitely want to thank her for her years of service to our students, to our families, to our school district. She will be very sorely missed.
Thank you, Mrs. Blackburn. I agree. Any other questions or comments on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, we are ready for the vote.
Vote is open.
Ms. Weidman, can you record my vote orally as an aye?
Certainly. Ms. Burton Dozier?
I'm up. It didn't come over yet. Can you push it back out?
Shall I just? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The vote is closed and passes unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Weidman. Now we move on to our special reports by the board. We will start with Dr. Simkowiak with the Citizens Advisory Committee report and the North Allegheny Foundation report.
The next meeting of the Citizens Advisory Committee will be on April 14th. The North Allegheny Foundation is busy planning the Taste of NA fundraiser in May.
Thank you, Dr. Simkowiak. Next, we have Mrs. Blackburn with the A.W. Beatty Career Center report.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. We have a meeting next week. We have been talking about our budget, so we will see where we are with everything. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, our legislative report, Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. There is a flurry of activity this month in the legislative report. Notably, Linda McMahon has been confirmed as our education secretary. The federal government, under the aegis of the Department of Government Efficiency, has cut the U.S. Department of Education workforce roughly in half. However, the exact downstream implications for our state and others is not clear. The PA State of Education report was released earlier this month with participation from over 500 school districts. As a whole, common themes reflected and identified in this report were the need for facilities improvement, staff shortages, budgetary pressures, and mental health support for students.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw. Now we will move on to speakers on non-voting items. As a reminder, when you come to the podium, please state your name and your address. And I see some new faces in the audience. This is not a back and forth. It is an opportunity for the board to listen to your comments. Our first pre-registered speaker is Dominic Sillo.
Hi, I'm Dominic Sillo. I live in McCandless. Good evening, members of the board, faculty, and fellow students. My name is Dominic Sillo. I'm a 9th grade student at NAI. I stand before you tonight not out of personal desire, but out of necessity. The issue at hand is not an abstract debate. It is about our rights, our privacy, and our safety. And yet, it feels as though the voices of students most impacted by these policies are being overlooked. Let me be clear. Every student, regardless of gender, male or female, deserves to feel comfortable and secure when using the restroom. That is a basic expectation, not a privilege. Yet here at North Allegheny, that expectation is being compromised. Students walk into what should be a private space only to find members of the opposite sex inside. This is not about personal feelings or political ideologies. It is about reality. And anyone who raises concerns in this day and age is labeled discriminatory or hateful. Here at NA, we are told to simply use the nurse's office restrooms if we have a problem with the policy. Why should we, the majority of students, be the ones forced to adjust? Why are those with legitimate concerns being told to step aside while a controversial policy takes priority? Schools should be places of fairness and respect for all students, not just those whose views align with a particular agenda. This is not about comfort, it is about safety. And we have already seen what happens when schools ignore common sense policies. In Loudoun County, Virginia, a biological male identifying as a female was allowed into the girls' restroom, and he assaulted that female student. That is not speculation, it is fact. I ask each of you, members of the board, parents in this room, are you willing to risk that happening here at North Allegheny? Are you willing to put ideology ahead of the well-being of students that you guys were elected to serve? Because make no mistake, this policy does not prevent harm, it invites it. Ignoring these concerns does not make them go away. Dismissing them as intolerance does not make them any less real. North Allegheny prioritizes its inclusion policies, but inclusion should not come at the expense of privacy or security. It should not require students to give up their dignity or to be made to feel uncomfortable in a space meant for personal privacy. This is not about exclusion. It is not about discrimination. It is about fairness, about biological facts, the same biological facts you guys teach in your schools. Dr. Highland, members of the board, I urge you to listen, not just to me, but the many students who feel unheard on this issue. This is not a demand for division, nor is it a rejection for anyone's identity. It is simply a call for policies that respect and protect all students. One reasonable solution, add more single-use restrooms for those who request them, rather than forcing an uncomfortable compromise and burden on the rest of the student body. In 4 short years, my younger sister will enter this district. I do not want her to feel unsafe or uncomfortable using a restroom at school. I do not want her privacy and her dignity to be sacrificed in the name of political activism. I will not accept silence on this issue, and I will not accept inaction. And I know that I'm not alone in that. We are here because we care about this school, about each other, and creating a respectful, safe, and fair environment for all students. Thank you.
Our next registered speaker is Mike Hatch.
Hello again, Mike Hatch well, I live in McCandless as well. So I was double checking in North Allegheny, the mission statement is preparing all students for success in a changing world. As a local business owner, entrepreneur, and pastor, I can say that success in a changing world takes hard work, a low time preference, and positive, selfless attitude. I'm also an Air Force veteran, and I still love the mantra that we lived by in the Air Force, which was integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. By allowing a girl into the boys' restroom, you are instead teaching our kids that as long as you identify with the favored ideology, you get preferential treatment. Everyone else must conform and inconvenience themselves for the few elite. No wonder the amount of students identifying as trans is skyrocketing here in the United States. Who doesn't want special treatment? So instead of hard work, long-term perspective, selfless attitude, you are teaching our kids partisanship, self-referenced perspective, and a selfish attitude, setting our kids not up for success, but for failure in a changing real world that will eat them alive. I want to thank Dominic for standing up and for exemplifying courage, self-sacrifice, and the love of others by standing up for what is right when the predominant cultural current of narcissism attempts to overtake you. That takes courage. Well done. And anybody else who might be speaking tonight, I attribute that to you as well. You are not alone, okay? Myself and many other parents and adults stand with you, and I just want to say we're praying for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Those were our two pre-registered speakers. If anyone else would like to speak on any topic, you may come to the microphone and speak for up to 2 minutes. Would anyone else like to speak this evening? Please come to the podium.
Michael Molinaro. I am encouraged to hear such a young man speak on behalf of his student body and the district in the whole. I am not going to reiterate. I had a speech somewhat planned, but there's really no need for everybody to hear it. I'm here basically to support him, to support us as a district. I think we need to do whatever we need to do as a district to support this, but not allow this nonsense into each bathroom, because it's only going to escalate into bigger problems. And I don't want that for our children. I don't want it for my daughters. I don't think we as a district want it for the student body, because I got news for you. It's not going to be pretty. So I would encourage us as a community to figure this out ASAP.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak for up to 2 minutes? Okay, seeing no one else who wishes to speak this evening, we move on to our closing items. Do any board members have any announcements or reminders? Mrs. Blackburn.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. I just wanted to congratulate the boys swim team because they won a state title, which is great. First one since 2019.
I should know that answer.
What was it?
I said I should know that answer.
Yeah, I'm
But I'll
looking your
expand
way.
a little bit here on this.
I was going to try and look it up really quickly, but didn't have time. I'm close. I'm close at least, but they've won quite a few at this point, as have some other sports, but pretty amazing. For those who don't know, our North Allegheny athletics is ranked second in the entire country. So they're pretty amazing, but I'll certainly congratulate the men's swim team for bringing us another title. Thank you.
Mr. McClure.
I'll, of course, expand on that a little bit, focusing first on the fact that out of the entire state of Pennsylvania, that North Allegheny's, as I mentioned last time, we had the WPIAL boys winner and the WPIAL girls winner. Well, as it turned out, we had Juliet Hood as third place in diving for the girls, and Maggie Lapina in seventh place for the girls, and in third place for the boys was Ethan Maravich. So out of the entire state of Pennsylvania, we've got 3 wonderful students on the podium there. The boys indeed did win the state, in part in help because of Ethan's points, and the girls placed 4th, and that's out of 58 AAA teams. That's pretty cool. The girls had won the state each of the past 2 years prior. So anyway, congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. McClure. And it was 2019, Mrs. Blackburn.
Oh,
Yeah. Does anyone else have any announcements or reminders? Ms. Faber.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. In light of a recent tragedy in our school district, I'd like to remind anyone in the audience or on the board that if you have the time, that the visitation for Hope Myers is from 2 to 8 p.m. on Friday, and the funeral service is at 11 a.m. at Orchard Hill.
Thank you so much, Ms. Faber. Anyone else this evening on the board? Okay, seeing none, I adjourn.